Hi, this is Mike again. Today I want to talk to you a little more about critical race theory. Critical race theory has lit a fire under many parents as they don't want their kids being taught that they are either racist or being subject to being oppressed by racists. School board meetings are no longer boring, parents are showing up in droves to protest what their kids are learning in school. But when the parents mention that one of the things that they are protesting is the teaching of critical race theory, the other side says we don't teach critical race theory. This response is meant to throw you off. After all, if they don't teach CRT, what are you arguing about? What we need to remember is that critical race theory isn't always presented as critical race theory. The framework of CRT can be utilized to frame other concepts or present them in an inappropriate context. Though some of these concepts, in a vacuum, are entirely appropriate or otherwise worthy of debate, discussion, or instruction, the manner in which they are presented matters. Racism is a very important concept that merits instruction, for instance, just not through the framework of CRT. The following, though not exhaustive, is a list of terms and concepts that often accompany CRT instruction. Here is the list in alphabetical order: abolitionist teaching, action civics, anti-racism, anti-bias training, anti-blackness, anti-meritocracy, centering or decentering, collective guilt, colorism, conscious and unconscious bias, critical ethnic studies, critical pedagogy, critical self-awareness, critical self-reflection, cultural appropriation or misappropriation, cultural awareness, cultural competence, cultural proficiency, cultural relevance, culturally responsive teaching, cultural responsiveness, and culturally responsive practices. Wow, did you ever think CRT encompassed so many different terms? Yes, CRT has many different terms and definitions. Are you ready for more? Here we go. Other terms that you might recognize include decentering whiteness, deconstruct knowledge, diversity, equity, and inclusion day, diversity-focused, diversity training, dominant discourses, educational justice, equitable, equity, examine systems, free radical therapy, free radical self-collective care, hegemony, identity deconstruction, implicit-explicit bias, inclusivity education, institutional bias, institutional oppression, internalized racial superiority, internalized racism, internalized white supremacy, interrupting racism, intersection, intersectionality, intersectional identities, intersectional studies, and land acknowledgement. Have you heard of these terms before? You probably have heard of equity and diversity, but I suspect you didn't link these terms to CRT. That is by design. Our education system is teaching CRT, but it is in stealth mode. I bet you thought I was done. Not quite. There are more terms, some of which you will probably recognize. For example, marginalized identities, marginalized minoritized underrepresented communities, microaggressions, multiculturalism, neo-segregation, normativity, oppressor versus oppressed, patriarchy, protect vulnerable identities, race essentialism, racial healing, racialized identity, racial justice, racial prejudice, racial sensitivity training, racial supremacy, reflective exercises, representation and inclusion, restorative justice, and restorative practices. I am sure that you notice a few more terms connected with CRT, for example, oppressor versus oppressed, race, racial and more. Many of these terms represent subjects that are being taught in your child's school. Check out your teacher's lesson plans and course material to see if you can find any of these terms. Now a few of the next terms, I am sure that you have heard before. What do you know about social-emotional learning cell, social justice, spirit murdering, structural bias, structural inequity, structural racism, systemic bias, systemic oppression, systemic racism, systems of power and oppression, unconscious bias, white fragility, white privilege, white social capital, white supremacy, and whiteness? Did you ever think these terms were associated with CRT? They are. Can you now understand that this response by the supporters of CRT is an empty response? What I suggest you do now is to prepare your response by looking at the materials being used by the teachers at your school. As a parent, you have the right to review all curriculum, books, videos, and lesson plans being used to teach your child. If the teacher or school board member will not let you see the material, you can file a Freedom of Information request with the school. If they still won't give the information, you may need to hire an attorney. You may find resistance from some officials and teachers, but keep pressing. You have a right to review the curriculum as a parent. Once you review it, if you find things regarding CRT, comprehensive sex education, equity, or anything else you disagree with, make a copy and take it to your school board. When you go, Be sure you have others with you, so you are not alone. The more people you have, the more power you will appear to have. I also ask, if you find something, that you provide a copy to Nehemiah Reset. Include the title of the material, book or material, the publishing date, and the page on which the material can be found. We will take this information and publish it in our public school indoctrination hall. This will allow others to see the information and bring it to the attention of their school boards if the same material is used in their school. Some school boards will say that the state sets the curriculum used in the classroom. This is not normally true. Normally, the school board has the responsibility to establish or at least approve the curriculum being used. Don't let the school board tell you that they have no control over the curriculum. In Minnesota, the Department of Education tells all new school board members that they have no control of the curriculum, but this isn't true. Part of the school board's responsibility is to set the curriculum. The Department of Education establishes the standards by which the students of the district are graded. Every 10 years they establish the standards for different subjects. The standards are getting more liberal, so this is becoming a big problem as well. However, the school board needs to determine which courses will enable their students to score on the state's test. I hope this has been helpful to you to better understand CRT and the role of school boards in the approval of the curriculum. I hope this discussion has been helpful. See you soon in one of our other videos. In the meantime, visit NehemiahReset.org and learn more about the issues in our culture and how your worldview impacts how you react to them.